While working on, or more working on this collage, was stuck pasted on papers, and I've decided to put a bunch of shoes on here because that's what I was seeing. And this is sort of the history of shoes. I think the only thing I didn't put in here was an Egyptian sandal. And you never know if that ends up being in here somewhere. But right now, this is what we have. This is the Chinese bound foot boot. Thank goodness that went out of style. A lot of these have to do with style. This is the poulain, which is a really, really nasty shoe. I don't know how they wore it for so long. And it crunched up. People had corns and all sorts of bunions and things because it really pushed all your toes together. And I don't know if you've seen the Blackadder series, and the shoes, the poulains that the Blackadder wore were really long and very pointed, and you know, the extreme of the extreme. So anyway, it's an interesting shoe, and I'm glad it's just on paper and I don't have to wear one, or somebody I care about doesn't have to wear one or two. And now the Dutch wooden shoes are still used today. They're very practical out in the fields, so lots of people still have those. And of course we had to put one contemporary boot. I think it's probably a work boot with a steel toe on it, and I've just altered it a little bit because of considerations for you know, we don't want to be doing things to copyrights. Then I've used a little white pen for this is the Heroic acrylic paint pen. Now I wish somebody would invent a white paint pen that actually works, you know, reasonably well. And but it's a nice thing to have for little tiny details like this, embellishments on shoes. And maybe they had other embellishments, other gems and things. Anyway, and the Chinese, this is probably silk with all sorts of embellishments. This is from an archive, and you can see birds, and there could have been precious gems in some of these little flowers and things, right? So for the most part, I want to add flowers so to give it sort of a feeling of where it comes from. The Dutch grow lots of tulips and crocuses and so forth. So I thought crocuses, because of our time of year, will be appropriate. So we're going to add a few crocuses up here. Then for our boot, and because it's such a heavy-duty kind of footgear, I thought we'd do something like the opposite and, you know, put some snowdrops there. And I haven't decided what to put with the poulain yet. It needs, you know, some details, and there isn't much room. I thought about irises. I think irises might be quite nice. And here, this one, because of the shape. So maybe we'll sneak an iris or two in here. So that's what we're on about today. And I won't be doing much talking. It's pretty straightforward. Staedtler Karat Aquarelle water-soluble watercolor pencils. And I have a variety of flat brushes that I'm going to be using, and maybe one liner brush. Also, to outline and sketch things in are a General's Sketch and Wash graphite pencil. So okay, so what do we start with? Well, let's try with the boot and get these snowdrops in down here. That's kind of a perfect area. And it's, you know, more impressionistic than realistic. I'm not trying to to really super high detail, just sort of to get the essence of things. So they have a little cap. Try and do a nice composition here of them. And pretty simple shapes for the most part. They have two flower petals that are visible. There's another one back there. So you want to get sort of the essence of what the flower looks like. And then you just take your brush and wipe away what you don't want. And wiping it back like that helps sort of create form and also shadow to some degree. Sometimes you have to do it from the outside and wipe away from this side. That's negative painting. Okay. We're not going to be getting really super white here. It'll be, and many flowers are very transparent, which might, you know, and then of course the collage aspects come through from below. Now to prepare this piece, I put some GAC 900 on first. It keeps it fairly soft. That kind of thing is meant for cloth, but it works good on collages. And then I put a whole layer of matte medium. Otherwise, because we're working with wet media here, and I've had tissue paper glued on here, as you're working with this wet media, it might lift up. I've had that happen. So that's why I put all these extra layers on. But you want the layers to be paintable, so not so plastic that, you know, the paint is not going to work for you. So just doing that little cap. And we're going to make it much lighter as well. And then there's a little stem here. And we'll just pretend that these flowers are behind the boot. And then maybe we'll have another little flower in here. I'm sort of looking at what's behind there too, and see if we can use that collaged piece that's underneath there to effect. Okay, we'll let that dry, and then in the meantime we can go somewhere else. Let's try for a crocus. Well, hindsight is 2020. They say I should have probably started with the crocus, but I kind of wanted to put those in. So these are my crocuses, and they didn't last very long last year. We have deer, like a whole herd of them, and they come through and had a nice snack of my crocuses and tulips and anything else they could munch on. So then later on that spring, we decided to put up an electric fence. It's not even that high, but that worked a charm, so highly recommend it. Anyway, crocuses. Let's just see if we can draw one of those guys here. I'm going to make these fairly large, even though crocuses are fairly small. But they'll be sort of to scale to that, to the wooden shoe. And we had to put up 2 strings of electric fencing, because we had one at about, what about, Josh, about 4 feet high, 5 feet high, something like that. And one of the little deer who was just starting with his antlers looked at it and then just dashed under the first one. So, but since we put the second string up, they haven't gone in. Even though they could jump the fence, they don't for some reason, which is kind of interesting. And there's a white, sort of a whitish petal here on the outside. And it comes down to a nice tapered stem. Anyway, you just, you know, it's nature. You have to realize that this was their territory, and we are part of nature as well. So, and look at, see the inside here with there's a nice, so we can capitalize on that. Maybe a pale, just to start on some color. Then we'll bring some darks in. This piece may be part of a show. I'm not sure yet. We'll see how it turns out. So that looks pretty good. We got one in there. We might be able to get another one in there. And this one's drying nicely, so we'll add more details. You know, there's all sorts of foliage we can put in here. So the pencils are great because they give you more of a watercolor effect rather than, say, a hard edge acrylic paint. Few shadow tones. We'll let that dry and then we can keep working on it later. No, we'll use our generals for the drawing. I can erase it and take it off easily if you know, if I'm adjusting a line or something. Now, if you have trouble drawing, you know, things and you want them to look like something, you can do it as blind contour, where you're just looking and following the shape and not looking at your paper very much. That's one way. And the other way is to, this is, I don't know if you've checked out Diane Mize yet. I often recommend her. She talks about using your finger and retracing the exact shape. So you would go around and you trace it many, many times, and that gives you muscle memory. And then you get the feeling of where everything is. And then when you're drawing it, it becomes second nature. It's a really wild thing that happens, but it's true. Especially those of us who are a little sight challenged. She really is a marvelous instructor and has great courses, so if you're just a beginner and you want to learn from the best, well, I highly recommend her. Orange is quite a nice intense color, so. And we'll start again with a lighter color. Usually in watercolor you start from light and then go to dark. Sometimes I put in shadow colors first. And then whatever you want as the lightest, you leave that. So as you're working like this, you know, it gets its own vibe, and the painting will tell you what it needs. You have to look and pay attention. And most things you should do 3 of, so we'll probably put another little one in here somewhere. But that's sort of coming together and I like it. This was kind of spontaneous. Sort of I had in my mind what I wanted and where I wanted it, and placed it there. So in a sense, I guess you could do it from memory, but it's best to work it out. You know, use a good, like a 4 to 6B pencil, and put in your darks and leave your lights, and maybe have one middle gray just to show, you know, some other areas. So 3 values, then work out your composition from there, and then it's really easy actually to do the work. Since we're not, you know, we don't really have to worry about a light source in this kind of composition. We're sort of just getting a rhythm, maybe a bit of movement, because the shoes are all, you know, looking like they're walking almost, right? So there's a bit of movement there. And the same with the flowers. They, you know, they could be in wind. They will leave them at a slight angle just to get the feeling as if they're outside and in some kind of weather. By the way, the poulaines came from Poland. Then the English adopted them. Thought they were kind of cool at the time. You know, everybody was so, especially the men were very fashion conscious. I mean, later on, in the 1800s, gowns became really, really elaborate, and bustles, and they sort of were making up for the time that the men had to swave with all the fancy coats and cravats and boots and so forth, and the dandies were really, you know, off the deep end fashion-wise. So I've decided to do work on the Chinese shoe, and of course peonies are, they might even have come from China. What we'll do is put a lot of the foliage here, and I'll do the peony right on the shoe itself. And we'll just give it a shape first. Just so we can fit everything in. They have sort of ragged edges. And then they sort of cup into the center. So basically we're just going to do some shapes to get the feeling of peony. You don't have to be slavish about the details here, as you want to get the impression, the idea. And on the shoe itself, it would probably have been embroidered. Maybe just give a few more leaves here. So a nice large peony. And then basically you just start, because we have a purple there already, we have the colors pretty good already. And it kind of ties in with everything else. So we'll just add a little bit more color here. And I'm going to leave it, and then we're going to add lots of white in there, just to brighten up the color. And then we can do some of the leaves here below. So we'll give it some, and there's some green in here already, so that's perfect for our leaf. And we can add lots of shadows and fun things to that. And they have a unique leaf where there's sort of part of a big leaf here. There's shadows in here and so forth, so we can do all that. And again, lots of light. And we'll darken that in spots. Now as for the background, after we get all these extra things in there, I will probably push it back maybe with a turquoisey blue, something like that. And since that's in the dark here, let's put it right under the shoe. That would be good. There's a few veins in here too. This edge will probably be cropped off, that's fine. I'm going to be mounting it on a board and then putting many layers of medium on it to hold it down, and then finally a varnish. So I'm just starting to add some of the whites to the peony petals. And the collage really helps with feeling of shadow and all that kind of stuff. Sort of a nice shadow right there. And that top is lit up. The side. And then this petal here, we can bring that out and leave that negative area, shadow area. And then there's this one up here that I want to make sure it's light. And you don't have to do a lot of detail, just the tips. Just the peony-ishness. Is that a word? Probably not. Well, we make up artistic terms. It's so much fun. So that has to dry, and then I'll pump up the shadow a little bit with some reddish. Might try that just to show you how it's done. And then just around the there's some dark there already because of the general sketch and wash. But you just want to change a little bit of color here, just to get the feeling that you can adjust as you go. But we want it, to get that peony look. And the inside of the peony, is all these convolutions. Insides are darker, but not too dark, so all you don't want to do is just change color a little bit and then bring it into the light again. So you get that feeling of those lovely ruffles. And again, let it dry and then keep working on it. Well, we have lots to do on it. It's definitely a work in progress, but you can see, how it's developing, and, we're going to add lots of the foliage, push most of the background back. Keep posted on our channel, like and share and all those things. Really appreciate it, and we'll catch you another time. Bye for now.